You've got an exam coming up very soon, but you still haven't studied enough for it. It's almost here. You almost have to walk into that exam room and sit it. It's right around the corner, but you just don't know enough yet. But how should you study? You can't study for 12 hours a day. Should you read for your notes? Should you highlight them? Should you write them down over and over and over? Should you do past paper questions? What should you do? The thing is that everyone wastes their time when they're studying. They aren't actually learning or memorizing anything. Instead, they just read through their notes or they highlight it and it goes in one ear, out the other immediately. They can't understand it. They don't memorize it. They spend hours reading through the notes or the textbook. But they're just wasting their time because they don't actually remember any of the stuff they read. It's not that they're stupid or they're not working hard, but it's because of what they're doing. Stop wasting time and start studying efficiently if you want to get good results. Now, I'm currently studying economics at university, and throughout my time studying, I have always averaged a first class honours result for my modules, which is the highest grade you can get. And one of the main reasons why I got this was because I developed a study system that allowed me to memorize and understand the essential content to be able to do it as efficiently as possible and be able to get between like 70 and 90% for all my exams. I was able to get the highest grades out of everyone in my course, whilst also not having to study for 12 hours a day. I only started studying a few weeks before each exam and only studied for like 2-3 hours per day. However, I was able to get higher results than people who studied a lot more than me. You can do the exact same thing if you follow the studying strategy in this video. Now here's the exact 4-step formula that I used to get first class honours in university, and you can use it throughout any exam for any level, and it's the exact strategy that I'm using for my final exams coming up in a few weeks. The first thing you want to do is find past papers for your subject. Get your hands on as many as you can. Now just look through the questions and look for patterns. See what topics are repeated every year. See what questions are asked repeatedly. Once you see what topics are repeated, a lot of them, the questions are copied exactly the same for each year. Now you know the exact topics to focus on. You don't need to study everything. Instead, you can just focus on the ones that repeat the most. Now, once you find the questions or the topics that are repeated over and over in each year, you can now use ChatGPT to answer them. All you have to do is just copy and paste that past paper response into ChatGPT, ask it to answer it, and you have the perfect answer that all you have to do is memorize it. Now, you should refine it by adding in some of your own notes from your lectures or your textbook or anything. But what you're doing is you're building a bank of pre-built answers for every question. Now all you have to do is memorize and practice them over and over, and you're bound to get the top marks in the exam. The problem with most people is they study the textbook notes. So they study it, oh, what is this topic, how it affects, but they don't actually study how they should answer it in the exam. They study it as they've written the notes, as it was taught in the lecture, whatever, but they didn't learn it in the exam format. So what they have to do is, whilst they get the exam, they see the question, they see the topic, and now they have to take all that information, reformat it in their brain, write it down, work out a plan for it, and that takes so much time that you don't have in the exam. They'll probably forget some stuff, or they add in some stuff that's not necessary, and it's just very inefficient. So what you're going to do with this is you're going to memorize exactly how to answer the exam question. So all you have to do is just write it down on paper. Instead of memorizing just a bunch of notes just in random order that you have to reorganize in your head once you get into the exam and you're stressed out and you're worried. Instead, you're going to memorize how exactly to answer the exam question, the exact steps like intro, assumptions, policy implications, conclusion. Memorize that exactly. So now you go into the exam, you see that on the paper, and then all you have to do is just write it down exactly how you memorized it. It's the most efficient system because you don't need to spend a lot of time in your brain trying to work out, okay, should I say this? Should this argument go here? Where should the graph go? No. Instead, all you have to do is you recognize what topic it is. You go, okay, here is the exact thing that I memorized, and you just write it down. It's so simple. But how do you actually memorize that ChatGPT answer? because it's difficult. There's lots there that you have to memorize. The method that I recommend is using active recall. Most people suck at memorizing stuff because they don't use active recall. With active recall, you actually train your brain to retrieve information. Instead of just trying to memorize anything just by reading it over and over and over, instead you develop the pathway in your brain to retrieve that exact information. So basically, when you see that exam question on that topic and you recognize what it is, you read it and you're training your brain to basically go and find that information and bring it back so you can actually write it down and you know what to say. And the more you do it, the more you do active recall, the more you develop that pathway in your brain. So when you're in the exam, you see that topic, instantly you know exactly what to say, you know the exact information you need to write down. So all you have to do is just write down and things will just pop into your head because you've gone through it so much. Now, you can always use flashcards, but the way I prefer it is using the Notion app or website. With this, you can use the toggle features, which is where you write a little thing and then you have a little toggle option, which when you click it, there's all the information below it that's hidden. Now, what you do is in the first part, you put the exact past paper question. And then in the little answer in the toggle section beneath it, the one you can hide, you put your ChatGPT answer there. So now, every time you do it, you see that past paper question, and in order to actually see the answer, you have to actually click it. The first thing you should do is try memorize the answer by going over it and over it. So basically, if you split it up into intro, assumptions, and then policy implications or anything, the first thing you do is you memorize the intro by going through it a few times, going through in your brain, just spending like 5-10 minutes just going through it. Then you do the next section, the next section. And then after you've memorized it, most of it, you then close that toggle, you look at the past paper question, and you try memorize it. You try recall it from memory. You try remember everything you can about that section that you've just gone over. And there will be some things that you can't remember. There'll be some things you missed out on. You'll make some mistakes. But the more you do this, the better it'll be, the more you'll remember. So basically, you get the past paper question that you found, and you then, in the little toggle section, you put your ChatGPT answer. You basically try and memorize that as much as you can. And what you do is you close it then. You close the answers so you can't see them. All you can see is the question. And then you just try to remember as much as you can. And then if you make mistakes, if you can't remember what to say or what section comes up next, you can always click the little toggle thing and see what the answer is. And then you close it again and you try recall it from memory again. And you do this over and over and over. This is how you actually memorize stuff. This is the perfect mechanism to remember everything. But the way you actually bring it from your short-term memory to your long-term memory is using spaced repetition. Now, what I've seen from most uni students even is that the way they study, the way they revise for an important exam, is they won't do anything until like 2 or 3 nights before, and then they'll spend all night going through it and just trying to cram in as much information as possible. This doesn't work. This is why you're going to fail. The real way to memorize stuff is using well-timed repetition. So basically, what you're going to want to do is spread out your revision over a period of time. This is how you study for less time and you still remember more than the person who studies for like 12 hours a day. So like, for example, on the first day, you're going to use active recall to learn and memorize everything. And then by the end of the day, you should be able to go through the whole past paper in your mind, off by heart. You know it perfectly. Then the next day, you look at the exam question. You don't open the answer. And you try and memorize as much as you can. And you might make a few mistakes. You might miss a few things. But you should be able to memorize most of it. And then, for example, on day 4, you'll review it again. And then on day 7, you'll do it again. And then by that point, you'll have memorized everything and it will go on into your long-term memory. Or at least you'll be able to remember it for the exam. And then you'll be able to forget it the next day because then it just doesn't matter anymore. Each time you recall it successfully after like a few days break, your brain realizes that this is important information and it has to memorize it. It has to remember it. You want to repeat it over and over a few days interval until you get to your exam. This basically locks the information into your long-term memory instead of just being in short-term memory where as soon as you walk into the exam, you suddenly realize that you can't remember anything and you forgot it all. Now, if you follow this method, you will get better results in your exam while studying less with less stress. It's the perfect system. If you want direct help with building your custom study system, with studying for your exam, with fixing your discipline, and finally becoming the best version of yourself, click the link in the description to apply for one-to-one self-improvement coaching and book a free strategy call. Now, if you enjoyed the video and you got value from it, please like the video and subscribe to the Unlimited Power Self-Improvement channel. And I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.